We're obsessed with the Connie Pheiff Show. It's about a lifestyle shift to move up or out.
Hey, what's your jam? What's the one thing that really drives you? What makes you unstoppable?
It's about opening a new door to live your dream.
People give up way too early on their dreams.
It's about enjoying the journey. It's about keeping it real.
Damn, now the interviewee is interviewing the interviewer. I like this.
It's all about you.
I knew there was something else I wanted to do. Stop taking shit so seriously. Y'all can do this. Take an outrageous look at life and laugh.
This is the Connie Pheiff Show.
We love your voice. We love your jam. You need to be on radio.
And now your host, Connie Pheiff.
Well, hey everyone, it's Connie Pheiff, and we're back for another episode of the Connie Pheiff Show. And with us today is another very, very exciting guest. And I was just chatting with him a bit, and it turns out that I spent some of my childhood time exactly where he's hanging out at with my family. And I've been all over the place. And some people, when I tell them, oh yeah, I've been there, they're like, wait a minute. Like you're Los Angeles to like the North Great Lakes of, Ontario, Northern California, or Northern New York State. Yeah, I've been there too. My family's just been all over the place. So he's an educator. He's a heart attack survivor, a state championship winning high school football coach. He's the founder of a high school bass fishing championship in New York State. Assistant high school principal, college and head high school football coach for over 17 years. But after his heart attack, he took a step away from his role as a high school athletic director, really taking a significant pay cut to find his true north. And we're going to talk about that because a lot of times things happen to us in our life. And really, we find that true north. We find that true calling after something happens to us. But he wants you to really take a look at that and see that before it even happens. So he's helping a lot of people get through that or find that before you get to that point. He grew up fishing on the Thousand Islands region of Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River with his father and grandfather. And that's the point that I've been there. I've been there as well. We're fishing with the family on the lake. Today he interviews inspiring coaches himself in the sport of football, professionals in the fishing industry, and business and education leaders. He's connecting deeply with inspirational people who have found their true north. He has programs himself that he's helping people through that and to help find that, and also as a professional and motivational speaker. Today, we have the joy to be inspired by him. And he says to himself to kick it into neutral and follow your heart to your true North-40. And please, as I welcome today's guest to the Connie Pheiff Show, Anthony Lipani. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Connie. That was one heck of an introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, you're quite welcome. Quite welcome. I do a little scouting myself when I have the guests coming on to the show, so I can find out a little bit more about who you are, where you come from, your background. Sometimes I bring things up about our guests, and you might know if I'll do that today. And they sit there like, how did you know that about me? Wow.
The Google machine.
That's right. Google does wonders.
Yes, it does.
Something about somebody. I remember the first time, this was years ago, when I first stepped out of corporate and I was trying to, get that first client, and I was being a consultant. And the guy, he's sitting across the table, and of course I'm nervous. And I was a CEO, but I'm still nervous. Like that first job interview, like, please hire me to be your consultant. And he says that to me. What would I find if I Googled you? And I'm like, I don't know. So of course I ran back to the office and I'm Googling myself.
Sure. Absolutely.
The joys of it.
All good things, I'm sure.
All good things. So I did Google you, and I found out a lot of interesting things. we have a relationship, Coach Johnson,
Yes.
in mind, and he's done a lot of great things in Rochester there as well. But you talk about overcoming adversity. Now, you had a heart attack, in your mid-40s.
Yes. Yeah. So I like to get right into that. So I was the athletic director here in West Arundecoit High School in Rochester, New York. It was my 6th year as the athletic director. Four daughters, beautiful wife. And I was working, legitimately probably 12, 14-hour days. And people that are out there in education, any kind of administrator that's out there knows it's typical to work those kinds of hours. So when you start working those kinds of hours, you stop taking care of yourself unless you're really disciplined. And I was disciplined earlier on in my life. And when kids come into the picture, things change. So physically, I let myself go. I was a lot of time behind a computer desk, not eating properly. My heart disease ran in my family. And one day in May 25th.
You never forget the date, right?
Nope. No, don't forget the date or time.
You probably even know the exact time that it happened.
Oh yeah, my daughter had her sophomore dinner dance that night. So my wife was working across town, and I drove. I don't recommend this to people that are listening to your show, but I drove myself to the hospital because I didn't want to bother my wife. I didn't want her to know, which was silly, but I did it anyway.
We do that.
Yep. And because your ego gets involved. Right. So lo and behold, I went there, and after they did the blood work, I was in the middle of an event, and I had 2 100% blockages in my left coronary artery and my circumflex branch, and they couldn't open them. Wow. They were calcified. That was after about 25 minutes of trying on the table, and you're awake the entire time. So that was pretty devastating. About 2 hours later, when my whole family walked in and looking at me, and I'm like, okay, I'm alive, but this is what's going on.
Right.
So yeah, that was May 25th, 2000 and 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the bad story.
Right.
The good story is they were able to get one of them open. All right. About three tries later, I was too young of a candidate for a bypass.
Okay.
I didn't want to do that. And I had a lot of good collateral flow, they call it, from being an athlete my whole life and lifting weights. So my basically your heart regenerates pathways for blood to get to where it needs to go.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to be strong enough to rehab. I lost 40 pounds working out and getting back at it. And but when you're going through something like that, I went through a tremendous amount of reflection on what was important to me in my life. And I went to my bosses here at the school district and I said, I'm scared. I go, I don't think I can do this job the way I was doing it.
Right.
And they're like, you sure you want to step away? And, and they were so gracious in working with me to restructure my position. And the position was going back to my roots, which was at the time it was a part-time teacher, part-time administrator.
Okay.
And now I'm back to full-time teaching.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about you. And I mean, we all have challenges. I mean, your challenge could have been, catastrophic. Fortunately, they were able to pull you through, and and it changed your life around. It was a gift. I've had some many drastic things that happened in my life, and fortunately, they turn around on the other side. And I always say, God gave me a gift. And now what I do with that gift, and it looks like you've turned that into an opportunity, into a gift, and not only for yourself, but to help other people.
Yeah, that's my family. We owned a bakery when I was growing up, and my whole family worked in the bakery. So anybody who knows the bakery business knows it's a service industry.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I naturally gravitated to become an educator. You serve other people and try to help people. So when it initially happened, I was telling my wife, I'm like, I don't want anybody to know. Let's keep this a secret, yada, yada, yada. And it was impossible because of my position and my role.
Right. You're a public figure. Everybody knows who you are.
When you're the athletic director. Yeah. So, and she called me on that. She was great. She's like, are you kidding me? So to answer that question, I'd made that decision pretty early on that, hey, I'm going to tell my story because I know I can help other people. And that's what, that's why the podcast Heart Attack at Age 45 Live was started.
Okay.
And it was also, Connie, to be truthful, it was also like a verbal counseling session. I know I never even created a podcast, had no idea how to do that. I didn't even know what a podcast was.
Okay.
My buddy Brian and I were ice fishing, and he told me about podcasts. So I started listening to podcasts about how to make a podcast by John Lee Dumas.
John Lee Dumas, the entrepreneur on fire.
Yeah, that guy. you were probably on his show, so
He and I started together, which is ironic that you just brought him up.
Absolutely. So I listened to his podcast. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't take his podcast courses. I had, I had to learn on my own.
Okay.
And I made the decision on January 17th of that year to do it, Connie, and I had it launched by Valentine's Day.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
good for you.
It's been downloaded over 20,000 times across the world, which is helping people. Yeah.
And that right. And all it is helping people. But it sounds like it was very therapeutic for you as well.
Significant therapy.
Sounds that way.
In addition to, and I say this openly and publicly, like my own personal therapist.
Right.
My wife said to me at one point, she's like, I can't do this anymore. You need to get in to see somebody. And she was 100% right. So that's the first thing I'll say to anybody listening.
Okay.
Mental health is the number one thing to take care of when you have a traumatic event in your life.
Yes, definitely. Now, were there any signs leading up to it that people, you could help our listeners pay attention to, be aware of? You mentioned working 15 hours a day, not eating right, sitting behind a desk. What were some of those signs that may have triggered you to say, get up and walk more?
Physiologically, everybody's signs are different. Everybody's warning signs are different. For me, it was a lot of neck pain and a lot of trapezius muscular pain.
Okay.
Shortness of breath and exhaustion. So those three things leading up to it, probably like 2 months leading up to it, I kept saying to my wife, I'm like, I'm tired all the time. I know I'm working hard, but it doesn't feel right.
Okay.
Then the night it happened to be one of those real early muggy nights in the spring up here.
Okay.
Which we usually get 1 or 2 really muggy nights, and it happened. And we had just bought a new house, Connie, and didn't have AC yet.
Okay.
So I walked down the basement to grab the portable AC units. And by the time I got to the second flight of stairs, I couldn't breathe.
Okay.
And I knew something was wrong, but I actually went to sleep that night. Thankfully, I woke up the next day. So the exhaustion was there, the neck pain was there for me, and just out of breath, shortness of breath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now you pay attention to it.
Yeah, definitely. The hardest part for me, because I still live with a blockage, which people that are out there that have never had a heart attack before.
Right.
You can live with a blockage; it's possible. But the hardest part still for me is that, I know that my heart's not functioning the way that it could. Still strong, and my cardiologist is outstanding. But at the same time, you live with that in the back of your mind, so it's a challenge. But you just attack each day with positivity, Connie. That's what you got to do.
I read essentialism. Why essentialism? I was reading that's something that you talk about.
That book really helped clarify things for me. I only lived 1.8 miles away from the school.
Okay.
So I started walking to and from work. Okay. And that book was recommended to me by a colleague that I work with. Barb Hartford, who teaches, or she's a math supervisor here. And she goes, you really need to read that book. So I downloaded it on Audible and I started listening to it. And the book itself is tremendous. It's about just, cutting out all the fat in your life and doing what's essential. And it kind of gave me the courage to change my career after working as hard as I had to achieve what I achieved, and let me let go of my ego. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. Another author I know very well. So that's why I was interested.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about Greg, or about his work.
Right.
Until that book. I reached out to him a couple of times because I know he's a busy guy. It's that if anybody can read that book, I would highly recommend it. Personally, it's just a phenomenal book.
And when you say let go of the fat, it's let go of the fat in your life. It's let go of what's not necessary, what's not needed, what's
important.
What's important. Sometimes, we fill and pile and so much on, our day to day. We're thinking like, this is ultra important when we really get down to it, it's really not.
No, and
it's just not.
No, and it's a lot of people. You hear about New Year's resolutions, and you get out the paper and you start writing goals, right? How often do people do that? How often do we do that? And with this book, in the state that I was in emotionally and mentally at the time, I just started listening to Greg's chapters and what he did to change his life, and it just resonated with me. And I was fortunate that my wife was supportive, and we were able to do it. We were able to swing it financially. It's, I'm not just suggesting you just quit your job and just go out to the mountains and hang out in the woods. But I am saying to you, if you are in the middle of a situation and you know that you're overworking yourself, you can reevaluate and restructure things if need be. And that's what we did as a family. It's really benefited us. We spent a lot more time together.
Right.
I'm spending time doing things that I love doing more
often. Fishing. Ice fishing.
Yeah.
I like the warmth. The Connie Pheiff Show is heard everywhere. You can find The Connie Pheiff Show on most of your favorite networks. It's time to now recognize and thank our major networks for all of their support. In the house, we have Conscious Business Radio, C-Suite Radio, Transformation Radio, iHeartRadio. We are also heard on Google Play, Apple, Radio, Stitcher, and so many more that I just can't keep up with them all. I'm Connie Pheiff, your unstoppable diva. Learn more about our gym and how we can work together at my fancy schwanky website, ConniePheiffShow.com. I'll see you over there. Until then, like, share. Now back to the show. So finding your true north. Your North-40,
yes,
as you put it.
Yes.
So I know you talk about that a lot, and you're podcasting and you're interviewing people who are inspirational, motivational, and those that are finding their true north. So explain to our listeners more. I mean, what is your definition of that? Because people have a different definition of what their success looks like.
Sure. I think finding your ultimate happiness in your life and really making a cognizant effort to do that on a daily basis, doing things that you're passionate about, doing things that give you joy, and doing them with people that you love. To me, whether you're married or single, or whether you're a pet owner and you love dogs or you love cats, and spending time, whatever your situation is, whatever finds your whatever your happiness is to me, that's what the new podcast is all about. And we actually are changing. My producer Jay Conan and I were changing our title to Your True North, because when I dove into it, it was I was targeting the fishing industry, and I was trying to, because I was so passionate about fishing and football and leadership. And I'm like, really, this is about finding happiness in your life. So, just having conversations like this with you, and the success that you've had as an entrepreneur and a motivational speaker and an author and somebody who's sought after around the country, just to have conversations like this with people who have done that, like you look at you've done that. Jimmy Johnson, our coach Johnson, he's done that. There's so many people that have done that. And that's what the podcast is all about. And, it's about helping people and hearing people's stories. We just had a guest on, Jennifer Johnson, who's a former TV news anchor here in Rochester who lost a child. And she came on our podcast and told that story. And now she's working in a different field at Galasanos Children's Hospital here in Rochester as the director of community outreach to help other people navigate through that tragedy. Right. So there's another example, I guess. It's just following your heart and getting out there and taking those risks. And sometimes you got to take steps backwards to find your true happiness.
Yeah, I mean, you really bring up a really good point, and I mentioned it, early on when we first started, that things happen, events happen in our life that sometimes, most of the time, take us on a different journey, take us on a different path in our life. Like when I first started, I mean, I was, I didn't come from a lot, in my family. I'm the only one in my family, in my generation, who not only went to college, who got a master's degree and even went on beyond that. And, and I was determined that I was going to even go to college. And so then now, later in life, when I went on to that, I look back and I think, I worked hard and this is what I wanted to do. And then I got sick and other things happened and certain things happened. And then I lost my job, my corporate position as a CEO. And then it took me down a whole different path, a whole different journey of starting my own business. And I've been doing this for over 13 years now. This is my 13th year. And when I look at that and what do I do now, I help other people determine what path is it that they want in their life. And most of them say, I have my career, I have my success, and now I want to be that author, I want to be that speaker, I want to be that thought leader, I want to be that celebrity, but I don't know how to get from point A to B. And that's that, that space in between that I help them do that.
That's
now, never have I thought that I would be doing that, let alone be owning a label that allows people to be able to do that. And so, when I look back and so many people I work with, like the news anchor you just talked about.
Sure.
We work with a woman, she was in corporate, but she always loved writing. So now she's a literary agent, but that has now expanded to, she was actually overseas and she was in a car accident and lost 2 of her children in that car accident.
Oh.
So now she has moved on into writing about that. I mean, so talk about a sad, sad situation.
Right. Yeah.
But, life just takes so many twists and turns. And I see a book in your future talking about those interviews of people that you are doing and turning that into their stories.
Well, I appreciate you
sharing that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I started, one of our students here at the high school is actually transcribing the first podcast for me right now. And I have I watched when I saw that you published 4 books. So I do want to get my message out there. I have no idea how to do it. I don't have any money to do it, to be honest with you, as a teacher, so it's like,
yeah. Well, it's a learning process, just like you learn the podcast.
Exactly.
There's so many ways to Google it and Google how to write a book. You can learn it. You could definitely figure it out.
Yeah, I've sent some feelers out, there's a couple places, about the concept and stuff. And again, like I'll go back to your story there about that woman, like, like your heart breaks for that. Right. And it's like, holy cow. And that's my point about going through something like you've gone through or I've gone through. Everybody's story is different. So for me, when I was a young athlete coming through, you're taught one way. You go after things.
Right.
And your ego, like you go for your next job. You go for your next interview.
Right. You're always crawling up that ladder and you're going to get to the next thing.
And when something happens to you in life, like the story you just shared or what happened to you or what happened to me, that doesn't matter anymore. For me, that's out of my life. So writing the book, it's important to me and I have goals and I want to do it. But right now I've got a senior who's going to college and I got this kid doing this. So it'll come. And when I get time to sit down and clearly write it, I'm going to. Right. But like I'm not chasing it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, when the time is right. Like after losing my job as a CEO, when I finally figured it out what I was going to do, I became a speaker and then I started, writing books. And then it was like, okay, where do I go now? And then about 2.5 years ago, I got sick. And then it was like, okay, actually lost my voice for over 6 months as a speaker. That's not a good business model. And trying to figure out what to do.
Sure.
And so then I started the agency, which blossomed into the label. I enjoy doing what I do now so much more than I did when I was stepping on that stage and speaking all the time.
Sure.
So, I mean, I still speak now, but I enjoy it so much more when I'm helping other people do it. So things change and, we change as we grow and, so you never know where that journey is going to take you. But when the timing is right,
yes,
you know it.
Yes.
You know it.
Yes.
So one question that I have for you. So even with what you've been through, with what you've overcome, I mean, do you still see every opportunity, I like to say, as a crack in the wall, where you can step in there and fill in that crack and say, this is something that we can do, this is something we can change, something we can overcome and move forward with?
Absolutely. And you try to be a good teacher, with kids that your own children and your family, but also kids that you, as an educator. So yeah, there isn't really anything that I don't think you can't problem solve. Obviously, people come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and I've been fortunate. My father's a successful entrepreneur, and my mom, old school Italian, loving mother who's always been there, for me and my brother. And if you got support of your family and any kind of crack in the wall or any kind of, my opinion, adversity that you hit, trust me, getting through that heart attack, I got through that heart attack with my family and a few close friends. And if you can get through that, and this woman that you talked about moments ago, I give her so much credit for telling her story and writing a book. She's attacking it, in a way that's good for her, or whatever she's got to do is whatever her passion at this time is telling her to do, she's doing it. Yeah. And I guess just got to follow that instinct. I would say that's why the new podcast was born. Like, now I want to talk about fishing and football, and there's so many people that have cool stories out there. Let's talk about that, and there's a lot of people doing it. I'm not looking to be on the number one bestseller podcast in the world. I'm just trying to help the local community. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, and if that works, then that's it. That's good.
Right. Good. Well, good for you. Good for you. So finish this sentence for me. I am unstoppable because
I believe in the goodness of people. And if you have a big heart and you work hard to be successful in life, and you believe in yourself, and those moments of doubt when you don't believe in yourself, that you can look yourself in the mirror and say you believe in yourself and get through it. To me, that's a mental strength that you can train yourself to have if you just work at it.
So what do you want the world to hear from you?
Oh boy, I want people to know that if you go through a significant medical event, I don't care what it is, it could be a heart attack, it could be cancer, it could be anything. Find the time and make the time to spend, your hours with the people that you love the most, and have those conversations with people that you haven't had yet. I could tell you that my father and I have become much closer since my event, and we had conversations that we would probably never have had because of my event. And my wife and I have become closer because of my event. So I would say to people, don't be afraid to show your vulnerability. Don't be afraid to, especially if you're a man and you have an ego, or a woman and you have an ego, it's okay to show your vulnerability. We all have it. Embrace it and cherish the time that you have with family and friends and talk about it, because they're going through something too. You might not know what it is, and they might not have the courage to tell you, but by you opening up, you might be able to have them open up to you, and your friendship or your love for each other will just grow.
That's beautiful. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
So you talk about living your true north. So when you live in bravely, are you living your true north?
I am. This is our first day back at school after our recess, and I spent 6 out of 7 days on the ice. My wife wasn't too happy with me, but she got to go away for 4 of those days too. So, it's just, I'm doing things that I love to do. I love being around the kids and teaching. Again, it warms your heart, to see. I'm working with elementary students in phys ed, so that's a pretty fun job. There's other things that I want to do as I move forward, but I've got 4 daughters, and I get a chance to see them grow and do their next journeys, so enjoy them. And I have a cottage that, I'm not looking to I'm just happy. We have a modest house, a modest cottage, and we're just living life. And I don't know what more happy, how much, if I had millions of dollars, I don't know if I'd be more happy than I am right now, to be honest with you. So it's an outlook, money's good, but.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. So what's next for Anthony?
Great question. I wouldn't mind getting back into coaching. It'd have to be in the right situation. I don't want to overtax my heart. And when I was coaching football, I was a pretty intense dude. So I don't want to do that. And also, you're
one of those guys.
Yeah, I was definitely. Or, I'm still open to, other administrative opportunities if the right situation, came about and it was the right situation for me and my family. Okay. I'm an educator and I love being around kids and working with kids. And
that's who you are.
That's who I am. And whatever role fits me, I only got about 6 or 7 years left. And whatever, if I want to go further, I can. But, whatever happens, just roll with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners find your podcast?
Thank you for asking. If you go to fishingthenorth40.com, that's the website. You can go on there, and both podcasts are still there. I haven't made a heart attack. I did make a heart attack podcast last week, like a 7-minute. But check that out. If anybody's going through adversity, I check that out. Fishingthenorth40.com. Scroll down. Both the podcasts are right there. You can also get it on Apple, Stitcher Radio, all the podcast locations.
Okay. Well. All of your favorite stations. So fishingthenorth40.com.
You got it. That's
okay.
The website. Yep.
Fishingthenorth40.com. So check it out. You want to learn more about it there. Well, that's all we have for today. Is there any parting words, anything that we haven't covered that you want our listeners to know about? No,
Connie, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure to get to meet you. And, I hope that you continue to find your true north.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being here. So thank you. That's all we have for today. And again, thank you for being here. I'm Connie Pheiff, and I am the founder of Talent Concierge. And if you're an artist or a speaker and you have a message to share, want to get it out, check us out at talentconcierge.co. And I'm Connie Pheiff, and I wish you the very, very best of weeks. And remember, be kind to each other out there, because that's all you have. Well, take care and see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, y'all, it's Connie Pheiff. Thank you for listening to The Connie Pheiff Show. Check back often. You don't want to miss any of the good stuff. If you like what you hear and would like to be a guest on the show, head over to theconniefeifshow.com to apply. While you're there, check out our amazing advertising opportunities that will put you right in front of your perfect client. I will see you over there. Do yourself a favor this week. Activate your power and be unstoppable together.